Hello everybody, this is Terry Wygal with TotalFinancialLiberty.com. Today we're going to go over creating a land trust. This is a land trust that we created last year on a house that we bought. I'm going to note for the record, I am not an attorney. You obviously need to get in touch with your own counsel and look at your own laws pertaining to your own particular state. This is not to be construed as legal advice. I'm going to show you how we conduct or create a land trust and the information that's in there, some of the important key factors, so that it give you a little bit of a base to work off of. But obviously seek your own competent legal advice. So, this is a trust agreement, and the way that we fill it out, the first thing you have to do is put in the date that the trust was created. Now, there are some attorneys who will tell you that when you sign the contract with the seller, you don't have to have the trust created at that point in time, as long as your intent is to go back and create the trust immediately. So if you're there with the seller and you know that it's a deal and you know you're going to get the house signed up, so you want to put something in the buyer's section, you can put the name of the land trust. So in this case, we created the land trust. This is the entity, if you will, that is creating the land trust. So in my case, it's a corporation. So therefore, they are the grantor, settler, and beneficiaries. That basically means that they own all the rights to this land trust and whatever's in there. So that is who is creating it. Now, we've also named a trustee. So in this case, we named myself as a trustee. Now, one key thing to note there is that if I am, as an individual, the trustee, I cannot be a grantor, settler, and beneficiary of a land trust. It invalidates it. But, given in this case, I created this land trust, and it is an entity, in this case a corporation, it is two completely separate entities. One is an entity, a corporation. One is an individual, me, myself. Okay? Then you put down the address of the trustee, so therefore it's my address. Then what are we going to call the trust? Well, in this case, we called it Freedom House Buyers Trust number 6810. There's a lot of different ways you can go about creating a land trust and naming them. Choose whatever it is that you're most comfortable with. Normally, I like to put the street address. So if the property address is 1234 Main Street, I'll usually put Main Street Trust number 1234. Okay? Then as you go down, it talks about the property, and you're going to put it in Schedule A, what the property is that you're putting in there, and we'll get to that in a second. What's the purpose of the trust? You've got all these legalese here. I'll let you look over your own particular land trust. Main thing you need to know is, what are the powers of the trustee? And the main thing to have in here, main thing to note in here, is that the trustee can only act upon written direction from the beneficiary. So people always say, well, geez, couldn't a trustee go and deed the house away from you and give it to somebody else? Yeah, they could. But if they act without being upon written direction of the beneficiary, they've committed fraud. That's your key safe haven, if you will, to a land trust. It must be done so in writing by the beneficiary. That's that line right there. Okay? If they act without it being in writing, then they can be held legally responsible for that. Okay? Then you go in and you can talk about all the different things that they're responsible for. Here's the power of directions, the duties of the trustee, compensation of the trustee. All right? All these different things are in here. They're very important, but you need to read them. Here is a section that will answer a trustee when you ask them to be a trustee, and they go, well, why would I want to do that? I'd have all this liability. Well, no. And right here where it talks about the individual liability of the trustee, it says that neither the trustee nor any agent employed by the trustee shall be required, without the trustee's express written consent, to enter into any personal obligation or liability. Okay, so that means that the obligations incurred by the trustee shall be the obligations of the trust only, and shall not only undergo any circumstances be the individual obligations. Basically, what that's saying is, as long as they act in the capacity of a trustee legally with written authorization from the beneficiary, there's no individual liability. Okay, so the next thing you need to identify is if the trustee cannot act as the trustee, who can take their place? Well, here we name two separate people so that if the trustee cannot act upon death, removal, resignation, physical, mental incapacity, whatever the case is, you have an appointed successor trustee who will step right into their shoes and sign the documents. So if you have a trustee who's out of state, you would now have somebody be able to sign the documents on a local level if the trustee cannot sign. That makes a very key point right there to be able to explain that to the title company when you're ready to close. Okay? So always identify people who can be the successor trustee that are near you. And then from there, again, there's a bunch more legalese stuff. I'll let you look through that. But the next main thing that you need to know is the trustee needs to sign on the trustee line, and then whoever the beneficiary is, whoever's creating the trust, needs to sign on the beneficiary's line. So you've got the trustee signing on the trustee line, the beneficiary, settlers, and grantors signing under their line. Then the notary will notarize the signature of the appropriate party. Let's say that there are 2 or 3 different people who went in and bought a house together. Well, then you just have a separate line for each of them. That's why most of the land trusts are created in a Word document. You just copy and paste, and that way the notary can sign for one person and sign again for another person and sign again for a third person if need be. Then you've got the trustee signature line here, and the notary signs that. Under Schedule A, this identifies the property that is being placed into the trust. Real nice and simple. Schedule B identifies who owns the trust. So in this case, one company owns 100% of this trust. If it was me and another person, I'd put that other person or entity down there, and then we'd own 50-50. Okay, so it makes it real simple. You just break up as to who owns what. Then Schedule C, you have what is the amount of the compensation of the trustee. So we put a nominal amount there of $10. That's basically all you have to do to fill out a trust document. So, I mean, it's nothing to be worried about, nothing to be concerned about. You can refer back to this video often. This is Terry Wygal, the Quick House Buyer with TotalFinancialLiberty.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next video.